Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of Watercolor 101 and Limitless Palette. This is both just something for beginners who are just learning about color mixing, but it's also for people who've been painting a while and just might need refreshers on things, or if you're anything like me, I'm always learning something new every day from someone. So I just thought I would share the difference between tube blacks in watercolor paint and chromatic blacks, or prismatic blacks, I should say. Let's call them prismatic blacks. So there are many of us probably who have heard that when, hi Sam, my cat's wanting to be in the video too today. So we've heard over and over again, don't use black from a tube. Don't use pre-mixed watercolor black. It's so dull, and we can mix our own blacks, and that's the way we should always do it. And I really believed that for a long time. And I always mixed my own blacks. And, you know, once I started playing with black from a tube, I realized they were just as wonderful, but they're just different, and they serve different purposes for me. And so I want to start this video off by saying, don't listen to those kinds of rules. There's a reason why we should learn to mix our own blacks. It's a good thing to know, and there are reasons, and I'll show you. But there's nothing wrong with using black watercolor from a tube, nothing at all. And the same goes for white. And the same goes for green. Some people only mix their own greens, and there are reasons to mix your own greens, because sometimes you really want a very specific color. And so we need to learn color theory to be able to do that. But I'm here to tell you that using a black from a tube is not a bad thing. But today I'm going to show you the difference, and I'm going to show you some tips on how to get really beautiful blacks by just using your primary colors or other colors in your palette. So I'm going to start by talking about the split primaries. And this plate I used for a project recently, and instead of squeezing out new paint, I'm just going to use this. So I've got a cool yellow, a warm yellow, a warm red, a cool blue, and a warm blue on here. There are some other colors on here, but we don't need to worry about those. Okay, so what you should know is that black can be made by any combination of red, yellow, and blue until you get it right. So there's not an exact formula for it. It's a dance, okay? And so I'm gonna put this palette right here. And I'm gonna open up my sketchbook to a page that has not been used, which is hard to find. Okay, and I'm going to mix up some prismatic blacks using red, yellow, and blue, okay? So here's the thing. It is a dance, and it just depends on the amount of water you use, the amount of pigment you use, the pigments you choose, okay? So there's no exact formula. But what I tend to do is I just start. So I'm gonna put some yellow down, okay, on my palette. And mixing black is always improved on a palette that's been used, because you'll pick up other colors, and that always serves to make them better, I think. So here's some of my cool yellow. And then I'm just going to take some of my cool red, which is quinacridone rose, and I'm going to make an orange with it. So I might need to make a little more, to put a little more of the cool yellow in. But I have a nice orange going here, and it's on the lighter side. Okay, so I can always add more pigment if I need to. Just to richen it up a little bit, because we're making black. And then we know that orange and blue are opposite one another on the color wheel. So I can take blue and start to add it to my orange. until I get black. For some reason my water is really foamy. I don't know why that is. So I'm starting to get sort of a purple, adding more blue. So if I have a purple, I know that by adding more yellow to it, because yellow is opposite of purple, okay, and now it's looking a little bit more green, so I'm going to add a little bit of red to it. You see? Now I'm going to add a little more blue. And I'm just adding colors. I'm taking the long way here to show you guys how you can arrive at it. Now these are the lighter colors on my, all right, so if I put a swatch here, it's still a little bit purple, so I'll just add a little bit more yellow. Okay, and that's getting more toward black. Now, these are lighter colors, okay? The Hansa Yellow Light is a really light, transparent yellow, so it's going to be harder to make a deep black. But let's go the other way. Let's start using my new gamboge, which is a warm yellow, and it's just darker and it's got more of a chromatic value to it. So I've got that, and then to that, I'm going to add some of my warm red. And I'm going to add some cool blue, really intense pigment. Look how right away I start to get a darker color. I'm going to add more of the warm red. A little more. I see how it's still a dance, but look how much darker these are. So these pigments are just darker pigments in general, okay? So immediately, so that's too green. So if it's too green, what am I going to add? The opposite is red. Now it's too yellow, so I'm going to add a little more blue. And then add it's getting there. I'm just adding them together. So you can see that it does require a little bit of effort to make these colors. Okay, I'm still needing some blue in there. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. And there's black. Okay, so it's a dance. It's a dance. And then once we get used to a certain trio of red, yellow, and blue, it'll be easier for us to arrive at the black because we kind of get a feel for what we need the most of, you know, with those particular three paints. Every combination of primaries is going to be different. Okay, so you're just going to have to play with it just like I did here. Add a little bit of this, add a little bit of that until you arrive at black. But you see how much darker these were immediately because the colors I started with are stronger. Okay, they're stronger colors. Now, that is one way to do it. That is a true prismatic black, and it's beautiful. And if I took this, I'm starting to run into other things, but I can make it lean toward purple. I can make it lean toward red. I can do all sorts of things with these blacks. They don't have to be just straight black because there are many variances of black, okay? And when they mass out and they turn into grays, they are some of the most beautiful colors you can imagine. And they have a little bit of every color in them. So let's say you're painting a landscape or a still life or a portrait, and you're using certain primary colors within your painting, certain reds, yellows, and blues, and any variants, right? And you use these colors to make your blacks and grays, you're going to have beautiful color harmony instead of reaching for a tube. Okay, so that's another reason to mix a prismatic black, because you're using the whole prismatic range of colors within your painting to make your darks and your neutrals. You're going to have much more color harmony, and you're going to have more nuance of color. Okay, so that's a really good reason to mix your own blacks. Okay, however, let me go into here. Let's say you're using handmade paints and you have a palette like this, and this palette does not have black in it, but you really need black. Okay, how do I make black from this? Well, you can start with the darkest color you have. So the darkest color I have here is this brown called peat. And I'm going to put a little bit in here. And I want to make sure I get it nice and strong in my palette. Okay. Now, I can look at my next darkest color, which is probably going to be this violet. Because I'm looking for strength. If I need black, I'm not going to be able to make it with a really light yellow, light red, and light blue. It's going to be more gray. I can get some of the violet in there and then see what I start to have. So this is really on the warm side, this brown. So I'm going to add some cool color, which would be like my blue. Remember, these are very light. This palette is really light. I'm just adding blue to this brown, and I'm getting darker, okay? Getting close to as black as I'm going to get with this palette, all right? Because these colors are not really dense, except for this one here. I mean, they're lighter in value and lighter in chroma, okay? So I can start with the darkest color I have here, and then add the next darkest color, and then see where it's lacking and add that color. And just, I can arrive at, this is probably as dark as it's going to get. And maybe with 2 layers, you know, it would start to look black, okay? So we can always find a way to arrive at the blackest color possible. And here's the thing, if you're making a painting with all of these beautiful sort of candy pale pastel colors, you know, the black that you're going to want to use, if you use even this gray, this dark gray next to these paler colors, it's going to look black in your painting, right? But the thing is you're going to have total color harmony here when you're using these colors in a painting, and then mix your black with those colors. And then you can also change the tint of this black. So you could make it into a more reddish black, if you know, a reddish gray. If you were using a lot of red in your painting and you needed a darker gray color, you could make it a reddish, you know. You could turn it into a greener black. So once you mix your own blacks, you can change it into different kinds of blacks that lean toward different colors. And let's say, you know, one time I painted a crow, and the sunlight was hitting the crow, and I wanted to show that beautiful variance of how light plays on black feathers. And so I needed to mix a whole bunch of different prismatic blacks, so I had some variance. Okay, so that's another reason to mix your own blacks. Now, here's something else I want to show you. So this is big, so I don't know how this is going to work here. Let me, these are brand watercolors by Holbein. I was wondering where that brush was. These are brand watercolors by Holbein, and they have a wonderful black called peach black that I use all the time. And let me show you how peach black looks. Look how beautiful and dark that black is right away, and it's glossy. and it blends into these beautiful variances of cool gray, okay? So let's say I want to use black. I want something easy. I don't want to mix my prismatic blacks for this painting. But in this painting, I'm using sap green for the trees. So my sap green is down here, okay? So I'm gonna take my sap green and mix a little bit into my black. Not too much. And so I still have something that reads as black, but it's got a touch of another color that I'm using in the painting in it. And so it will have more harmony with the rest of my painting. It won't look so distinct like this black might. Because this black, if I used it straight from the tube in my painting, would have no relation to any of the other colors, okay? But if I added some of the other colors to the black, just a touch, it's going to be related. So I hope that makes sense. So you can use a beautiful tube black, right? And it just makes it so much better if you add a little bit of the other colors that you're using. Even just a touch will make it have more harmony and fit better with the colors you're using in your painting. Okay, I can still get beautiful grays. I still get this nice rich black. So I'm bringing color harmony in. Now, here's a great example of a way to mix prismatic blacks. So here I have a really dark red, which is a alizarin crimson permanent, okay? And I have this beautiful sap green, and red and green are opposites of each other on the color wheel. And I can mix those two colors together, back and forth a little bit. Still working on it here. I think I still have brown until I get, let's see, that's green. So now I can add a red to it and just keep adding the two together until I get something very dark. All right, so if it's still coming out a little bit too green, I could always add in some blue and some more, and some brighter red. So you never know what you're gonna get until you start using these. So these really aren't, you know, these really aren't making the black that I was hoping for. So this green might have too much yellow in it. Yeah, it has too much yellow in it. So that means I would have to add violet to it. Getting better. Not a good example, guys. Sorry about that. Yeah. So this green has too much yellow in it. So if I were going to make a prismatic black with this red and this green, I would need to also mix a violet. To just sort of counteract that yellowness of that green and add some violet in there. But look at the, well, regardless, happy accident. Look at all the beautiful greens and browns I achieved by mixing those two colors. Okay, so there's another lesson, and this happens all the time. Some colors, some prismatic colors will not make black. Okay, so you have to play. Typically, though, if I were to use, well, one instant one would be to use burnt sienna, which is an orange, okay? It's an earthy orange, and ultramarine blue. These two together make black very quickly. Oops, sorry, I grabbed the wrong one. So that's one really quick mix to make black. Another one is like perylene green and perylene maroon. Those two will make black very quickly. Dioxazine violet and like Indian yellow or quinacridone gold will make black very quickly. Sometimes even some purples and greens will make blacks very quickly. You just have to play with it. Yeah, see, I would need to play with this a little bit more. But you can get, when you have some of your darker colors, you can mix them together and get some really dark valued colors. But the burnt sienna and ultramarine is a given. You can always use that one to make black from your palette. But wow, I'm really loving these. I'm gonna have to use those in something. Those are beautiful. Okay, so that's just showing you how to use a black from a tube, okay? And then add other colors that you're using in the painting to enhance that prismatic black. All right, so that's another one. Now, one more thing, handmade watercolors that come, I mean, there are so many different blacks that you can get in handmade watercolors, and I suggest trying some because they are absolutely stunning. And I'm going to show you two that I really, really love. And I'm going to turn this around. So all of the brands of handmade watercolor have beautiful blacks. I mean, there's so many. But I'm going to show you some that I really love. This one here is called Ursa Major, and it's made by Stoneworks Mill. And this is one of the most fascinating blacks I have. It's very dark, okay, really rich right off the bat, and it blends out into the most gorgeous granulating grays. This color is just amazing. So much texture. I use it in mixes all the time if I want to add some really fascinating texture. But one of the most fascinating qualities about this paint is that it glimmers. There's iron glimmer in it of some kind. I'm going to say it wrong. It's probably, I'm not sure exactly what it is. But it doesn't matter to me. I'm not a paint maker, but all I care about is what this paint does, and it is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. And I know there are very specific reasons why Kelly, the maker of this paint, used the pigments that she used to make this mix. But all I know is that it is absolutely stunning. So much variance within this color and so much texture and granulation. It's just really fascinating and beautiful. I use it all the time. Another one is made by Pigment Hunter, and this is actually charcoal sticks from vines that he gathered himself and burnt the vines. So they became charcoal, and then he made this beautiful, beautiful black paint from it. And this is actually made from biochar. So there's all sorts of variances within here as well. It has a totally different kind of texture and feel to it than the Ursa, because it's a single pigment. It's just the charcoal, the burnt charcoal. It is exquisite. The texture is beautiful. It mixes so beautifully with other colors. So that's another one that I really, really love. Then Earth Mineral Arts makes a black called Black Star. Black Earth Star. And this is another one that is just so fascinating to use. And I don't know the pigments in this either. The only one I know is this one for sure. It's just charcoal. But this one, I mean, the textures that it makes. Can you see the difference? Can you see all of the granulation textures and patterns that this color is making? So let's say you wanted to make some, like paint a pottery bowl, for instance, and you wanted it to be some beautiful, rich blue color. So I could use like French ultramarine blue. And just get a bunch of French ultramarine blue. And then I could just add a touch of this Black Earth Star, okay? Or I could add a touch of ultramarine blue, a touch of Black Earth, I'm sorry, opposite. I could start black and add a touch of blue. But by adding just a little bit to my ultramarine blue, it's going to have the most fascinating granulation properties, okay? And then I could start with a Black Earth Star, and I could get a more prismatic black, depending on the colors that I'm using, by adding a little bit of the colors I'm using in the painting, but still get that intense granulation and beautiful patterning. All right, so colors like these blacks, these all mix beautifully with other paints. These are fascinating to use, and if you don't use handmade paints and you wanted to try them, blacks would be a great way to start, just to order like a single pan of a black from a handmade paint maker. These are 3 of my favorites. So as far as the deep dark blacks, there are so many variances of black, like Christina Mazzoni, Arts by MCM, has a Roman black that I absolutely adore, but it's not this deep dark black. It's a more subtle, softer, warmer black. Okay, so it's not quite the example for here, for what we're doing right here. Okay, so that's what I know about black. I know that I'm not afraid of tube blacks. I use them all the time. I'm not afraid of pan blacks. I'm not afraid of mineral blacks. I'm not afraid of making my own blacks. I love to use black in my work. And there are so many different ways to explore it and to use it. I mean, look at all 3 of these blacks, how different they are and how beautiful they are. You could make a crow with just using these 3 blacks and it would be incredible. It would be absolutely incredible. So that's it for today. I hope this was helpful. And we do, you know, I'm trying to get 1 video a week on YouTube right now. Sometimes, you know, I don't get to it. So my life is really full right now. I've got 2 very big projects I'm working on that I'll be working on through the end of the year. And so, unfortunately, how it always is, right? You got to go where the money is to pay your bills. But I try to get here once a week, if not once a week, then every other week for sure, to share some things with you. And next week I will try for an Artist for Everyone video. So we'll do a little project and maybe we will use black. Okay. All right, everyone. So that's it for today. I hope you have a great week and I will see you here again soon. And if you want more content, I do have a Patreon channel that's very, very active and it's one of the best things I do. I love it so much. It costs $5 a month and that allows me to spend the time I need to spend to make the wonderful content and to be present and answer questions and be a part of the community the way I want to be. So it's $5 a month and you get at least 12 videos a month. So consider it. You can take the link in the description box below. All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.